I want to ask you a question. Why are you a Jew? What makes you Jewish? You'll probably say to me, well, I was born into a Jewish family. I was raised as a Jew. I have Jewish heritage. I'm aware of my Jewish history. That's what makes me a Jew. And all of that is true. But I wonder whether the answer to a different question will be more difficult. Would you, if you weren't born as a Jew, would you choose to be a Jew? And if you would choose to be a Jew, how much would you be willing to give up in order to be a Jew? When we think about the archetypal convert, the Ger Tzedek, the first character that comes to mind in Tanakh is, of course, Ruth, famous convert who stuck with Naomi and became the ancestress of David HaMelech. But I have a little bit of a problem with that. Let's just have a look at the psukim of Ruth. And Naomi says to Ruth and Orpah, the two sisters-in-law, go back to your people. Orpah eventually goes back. And Ruth says like this, Vatome Ruth, and Ruth says, Al tifkei bi le'ozveich lashuv me'acharayich. Don't beg me, don't entreat me to leave you and to go back. Ki el asher telchi eleich. Wherever you go, I will go. Uvasher talini alin. Wherever you stay overnight, I will stay overnight. Amech ami. Your people will be my people, velohayech Elohai, and your God will be my God, So, if you think about that, who, or to whom, to be grammatically correct, to whom is Ruth loyal? Is it to God, or is it to Naomi? She says, wherever you go, I'll go. Wherever you lodge, I'll lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. In other words, whichever God you choose, that will be my God. It's you, Naomi, that I am loyal to. That's how I read that. Now, this is not in any way to detract from Ruth, who was obviously a great woman and displayed the wonderful characteristics that we know from the story, such that she became the ancestress of David HaMelech. And that's not my point, is not to detract from Ruth. But if I was going to choose a paradigm for a Ger Tzedek, a convert, it would be Yitro from this week's Sedra. What do we read in this week's Sedra? Yishma Yitro chohen Midian, choten Moshe. And Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, was the priest of Midian. He heard everything that Hashem had done for Moshe and Israel, that he'd taken them out of Egypt. And then the pasuk goes on to say that he brought his daughter and grandchildren. And then it says, Vayavo Yitro choten Moshe, uvanav v'ishto el Moshe. And Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, and his wife and his sons came to Moshe to the Midbar, to the wilderness, Asher hu choneh sham ha'elohim, where they were encamped at the mountain of God. And Rashi there asks a straightforward question. Afanu yodin shebamidbar hayu. We knew they were in the desert. So why are we being told he went to the desert? We know where they were. We don't need to be told he was in the desert. Ela b'shvacho shel Yitro diber hakatuv. The pasuk is speaking about the praise of Yitro. What does he mean? Shahaya yoshev b'chvodo shel olam. He lived amongst the greatest honor of the world. V'nidvo libo latzet el hamidbar. And he was willing, his heart, as it were, prompted him to go out el hamidbar, to the desert, makom tohu, a place of desolation, a wasteland, lishmoa divrei Torah, to hear the words of the Torah. So Yitro here has not just decided one day, oh, I think I'll become Jewish. He was a Kohen Midian. The Midrash tells us that he lived in absolute glory. He was basically the king of Midian. He was the priest of Midian. He must have had servants and slaves and minions, and he would have had his own temple, and he would have been the ganze Knacker there and he gave all of that up to be who? A nobody, just known as a Choten Moshe, as known as the father-in-law of Moses, of Moshe. He heard Vayishma Yitro, he heard what had gone on, and he put his money where his mouth is, as it were. He left his position of safety, of kavod, of honor, with all his friends around him. And no doubt he got a tough time from his family, from his friends, who probably, he was a subject of derision and scorn, no doubt. And yet he came and became part of the Jewish nation. Now this is what I call the paradigm of a Ger Tzedek. But that's not all. This poses a problem for us, because we who are born Jewish have got it on a plate. And let's answer that question. Would we do what Yitro did? Would we leave our comfortable, honored, safe surroundings and go into a midbar, go into a desert and follow his conscience and follow his spiritual path towards the Jewish people? Would we do that? Would we choose that if we weren't Jewish? And more than that, those Jews who never have decided that they don't want to be involved with Judaism, they've got a question to answer. Well, why would somebody like Yitro be willing to give all that up? But more than that, those of us who are observant, those of us who claim to be religious Jews, frum Jews, whatever word you want to use, do we love our Judaism in the same way as Yitro did? Would we be willing to give up what he gave up? Are we willing to give up anything for our Judaism? Are we willing to get up off our backsides on a wet afternoon, in a Shabbat afternoon, to make sure we go to Mincha? Are we able to say that we sacrifice anything of our comfort to elevate ourselves in our Judaism? Is our Judaism inspiring enough to us that if we were in Yitro's position, we would get up off our backsides and go into the midbar? Kadosh Baruch Hu says, of course, that he remembers the kindness of your youth when you followed me into the midbar. Zacharti lach chesed ne'urayich. I remember the kindness of your youth. Lech tech acharayich b'midbar be'eretz lo zarua, in a land that was not sown. That's exactly what the Jewish people did, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu reckons that as something praiseworthy. We have to ask ourselves on Parashat Yitro: would we facing the challenge of Yitro? Would we rise to that challenge? Do we rise to that challenge? Are we as on the same level as that Ger Tzedek? Every time you see a Ger Tzedek, think about what they've given up. Think about what sacrifices they have made in order to be part of the Jewish people. And then look at yourself and say, have I, would I, am I willing to make those kind of sacrifices? And the answer is not always what we might like to hear, but it makes us think perhaps there's more that we can do. Shabbat Shalom.